Hi, I'm Trent. This is the video that everybody has asked me to shoot. Not everybody, some people. We're not that popular. This is the cancer story, and I'm going to start by saying a few things. I'm not going to get this perfectly factually right. It's been 7 years. It's been a long 7 years. I have years in order, but I don't have every month of every year still in my 54-year-old head in order. But I'm going to tell you the story the best I can. I know the starting points. I know roughly when things happened. I don't have hard, firm dates. I'm not asking you to hold me to every factual and medical point I make in this video. I'm going to do my very best with no medical training and no calendar, and by the way, no notes. I'm not shooting any of these videos with any notes. I'm just staring into the camera and hitting record. I'm not adding graphics, lower thirds. I'm not putting inset pictures in there. I could probably make these far more interesting. I don't have a cool Mr. Rogers opening line. I don't have a theme song. I don't have a sweater or a perfect pair of shoes to put on for this. I have hats. I have lots of hats. Well, I could go like this. Oh, look at this. I could start every episode with a close-up of the hat, and then pull back and go, "Hi, I'm Trent." That's not me. That was fun, though. Anyways, so the cancer story. So my beautiful wife, Leesa, it's 2023. We are in what we call year 7 of cancer. My wife was at our dentist in December of 2015, right at the very end of 2015. She was getting a general cleaning and checkup from our dentist, Dr. Philip Craver of Cape Dental Care in Cape Coral, simply the world's greatest dentist and dental practice partner. No matter where you live or what you do, you should just be flying in, and nobody should have any other dentist with them. Just my opinion. They can't handle it. Anyways, love you, Phil. Our dentist, Dr. Philip Craver, was giving a really routine inspection of my wife. And when you're a very good trained dentist, you're looking for signs of oral cancer, and there's some touching and roping around and checking things. See, my medical terminology is going to be really hard to follow, right? He spots a tiny lump in the back of her tongue. Again, I don't have every detail perfect. Back left. And the tongue's more of a machine than you know, but what you generally believe to be your tongue, the back left of that, there was just a dot or something in there. And he said, it's probably nothing, but it's always worth checking out. So he sent us to an oral surgeon in Fort Myers, another great doctor. And it was quick. They got us in quick. That in and of itself seemed like a thing. And he sat us down in the chair, and he pulled her tongue out and looked at it. And it wasn't a 60-second conversation. He says, obviously, we're going to do a biopsy, and we're going to figure out what this is. But I'm going to tell you right up front, this looks like squamous cell carcinoma, cancer. That's not the good kind. And that was it. That was how we first heard the word cancer. And it didn't seem huge at the moment, but it was huge in the moment. It can't be anything but huge in the moment when you hear that word. No matter what we say to each other, how we're feeling, how we support each other, we're both floored by this. P.S. We had just lost a dog to cancer within a month prior to that. So we just put our beautiful Nutmeg, a beagle, down to cancer. And not just, I don't remember how close it was, again, within weeks. Leesa gets cancer diagnosis. So that's the diagnosis, and we go into 2016 with cancer on our radar. And we go through, we end up through a series of miracles through Leesa's mother. No, I don't remember. Yeah, Leesa's mom works at a cardiology clinic in Utah. One of the cardiologists there was college roommates with a guy that was a head and neck, or is the head and neck superstar at Mayo in Rochester, Minnesota, not Rochester, New York. And they get on with him, and he gets on a call with us. I think we had a call with him once or twice, and my mother-in-law him spoke, and he says, well, so they have him come up here, and she says, well, you know, they're not here with us in Utah, they're over in Florida. We live in Florida. And he says, oh my gosh, go to Moffitt. Moffitt's right there in Tampa, and you want to go see this guy. And my other, you know, friend, partner, colleague, best there is. So we end up at Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa very quickly, and going to the head and neck clinic of the Moffitt Cancer Center, and I have wonderful things to say about them. Not everything goes perfectly, but we don't. You know, it was just felt like a miracle then, and looking back, it still seems like a miracle. Whether, you know, I don't know, whether everything was done perfectly or everything went perfectly or whether we got the very best of everything every time, I don't know, because I don't know how to judge medical care. But but they were very professional. They were really caring. They were very thorough. They were very communicative. Everything about Moffitt Cancer Center, I believe, was miraculous, in my personal opinion. Of course, they didn't cut into me or do anything to my body, so I'm the one who says they're aces. I'm not saying Leesa disagrees, but I know that she's had a much more painful experience at Moffitt, so our perspectives are different. I respect that. She respects mine. I'll just tell you that Moffitt was a miracle for us, and they got her in there for surgery to remove a lump from the back of her tongue. I never really got a sense of the size of it. Somebody said it was about the size of 2 or 3 quarters, like 25-cent pieces stacked up, like a little cut like that, like a divot like that. Squamous cell, as I understand, has little tentacles, and you have to go to the end of every tentacle to get the margin. Margin's a big word in cancer. And that's what they did. And when she came out, she most definitely had the slightest change in her appearance, just because her mouth held itself differently, her tongue had been moving differently. She had to go to speech therapy and get some lessons on learning to move this new muscle in a different way. It had to be just started over. And she was awesome. It was great, and we just kept plowing through our life like that. She did the chemo 7 or 8 rounds of chemo every Monday, and then radiation every day for like a couple of 6 weeks, 7 weeks. I don't know. I remember the numbers, 35 sometimes in round 1. Surgery, chemo, radiation. Her mom was amazing. Her mom took time off from work, and they stayed together up at the Hope Lodge right across the street, right next door to Moffitt in Tampa. I stayed home and worked Monday through Fridays. They would get clearance medically for every Friday to come home for the weekend, and Terry would drive home. Lisa's mom, Terry, would drive them home from Tampa back here to Fort Myers. We'd have the weekend together, and then we'd send them back up Sunday afternoon for another week of battle. And I just was the weekend husband, and I was so grateful that my mother-in-law could do that. That was a miracle. Hope Lodge, you ever want to send money to somebody, all of these Hope Lodges around, these places where people can stay for free while they're getting treatment, or stay for very cheap, or whatever the opportunity, whatever the program is. Those are amazing programs. People come in and make meals for them. It's just, there's a lot of beautiful things that happen in that environment. And guys like me who have to stay behind and work and all that are just blown away and grateful and honored that somebody else is caring after their most important, their one, with such love and dignity and concern. So they go through that. We come home. We get her home. I would say surgery like April, and then chemo and radiation June and July, something like that, into the summer of 2016. We get her home for the back end of the year, and we start recovering and just trying to get back with life. Jaden's a junior in high school, maybe even a senior by this point. And that's it. We're just rocking and rolling, trying to live life with this thing. She goes out the following year in 2017. In the spring of 2017, she wants to go spend time with her family in Utah. And we make arrangements for her to go spend a big block of time in like March or April, a few weeks, almost a month maybe out there. And as soon as she gets there, it's just massive pain, debilitating. Didn't leave the bed in Utah for almost a month, pain. And we can't figure out what's going on. I guess recurrence is on our mind, but we're also thinking, is it the altitude? Was it the travel? She pushed herself too hard? All this. You just never know with cancer because there's not a lot of direct line correlation, particularly with oral cancer happening to a woman in her 40s who never smoked, was really not a drinker, lifelong Mormons most of our adult lives, and for that season. No reason to have cancer, so you can't correlate anything. Oh, you had an asbestos bunk bed, there's none of that. So we get her home after this traumatic, painful time. We get her back home to Florida. We immediately roll her up to Moffitt, and it starts looking like a recurrence of cancer a second time. And we're into the summer now, and now we've got our oncologist, but now we've got a surgeon, just a head and neck surgeon professional. He's not as much on the cancer side, but he's on the surgical side. And they're teaming up, and they're trying to decide where it's at. We've taken scans, and we're getting MRIs, and, they're doing all this. They did an exploratory surgery, and they said they didn't find anything, but then later they did. Anyways, somewhere in the summer, it becomes the conclusion of one of these doctors that they have to go in, and the cancer is spread just slightly to one side to the point where it's gone down toward the flap in the throat, all these things I don't fully understand. And because of that, he is of the opinion that that they should remove her vocal cords. And when he said that to us, the surgeon, not the oncologist, we immediately went, wait, no one's ever said that. Why are you suggesting that? So then we went back to the oncologist and said, wait, he said this. And he said, well, I don't know if I necessarily agree or disagree. And the details don't matter. But by the time they came together medically in their opinions, they basically said the cancer is spread in a direction that is going to require us to cut lower to remove it. And when we cut lower, we must remove your vocal cords. And so that became a calendared event, and we had about 60 days knowing that my wife's vocal cords were going away. And I'm not going to cry when I talk about this right now because I'm intent on telling the story correctly, but I will never be able to illustrate those moments, particularly those first couple of days, just chaos and disbelief, unbelievable, just lost. I think we were just lost for a few days. Have you ever even considered that? I never had. I never once in my life said, hey, what would it be like to be married to somebody? Sorry, I'm near my community pool and there's kids swimming. This is my life. I'd never considered a nonverbal relationship. Have you? You ever thought about that? I've never thought, hey, I should probably learn to read or know sign language, but I'm sure learning and have been learning now. So anyways, it was just deep. And it was hard, and this poor girl, I should stop and tell you, was a world-class singer. She made extra money on the side sometimes singing demos for country music writers. She broke out of her fear of public singing after in about 2012, 2011 maybe. when she started attending a more evangelical church, she suddenly decided that she would take a leap of faith and join the worship band, and they just couldn't believe that this white girl could sing like. She was so bluesy, she was so soulful. She had a large black congregation of people loving it. She was amazing. She ended up singing the national anthem at a Major League Baseball spring training game between the Boston Red Sox and the Baltimore Orioles at the Red Sox Stadium here in Fort Myers, spring training. Their last year at the old stadium downtown that won't reference for anybody. Anyways, suffice to say, her voice was really important to her. It was a central part of her self-worth and identity was in her ability to sing. That's big, and I cannot tell you how amazing she was at processing this. We went into, okay, let's do this. Let's plan things. We got her some recording sessions. This will be tough. We got her professionally recorded voice. I haven't listened ever to it. I'm not ready for that. It's on a thumb drive. She sent a message to me, a message to our son Jaden. I think she read a couple of books, children's books, because she wanted to have her grandchildren have books read to them in her voice. I think so. I think there's a book or two on there. I don't even know the inventory of it, and I'm not ready to hear the message she left for me on that. I don't think it's a wait till you die thing, but it's probably not time for that just yet. Anyways, we then went to Florida Gulf Coast University. They have the local public radio station, WGCU, on campus, so we went in their studios, and I don't remember the exact story. I contacted them asking for studio time, said, here's what's happening, can we have some studio time just for her to record? And it turned into her doing an interview with them, and also getting maybe some recording time. I don't recall all the details, but there were 2 different recording sessions, 2 different locations, the PBS station or the NPRs, whatever. WGCU folks were one of them. We're still grateful for that. I don't know about that footage, and I don't know that if I have it. So we came to it, and in the fall of 2017, we went up to Tampa the night before. Her family, much of her family, flew in, siblings, mom, brother. We did a photo shoot. Her brother's a fantastic photographer, has a wonderful camera and a good eye. So he took a lot of photos, family photos for us, just to get Leesa in her current form and all that. And those pictures are important. My phone screensaver's still one of those. They're having fun. So we went to bed, got up the next morning early, went to the hospital, and there was just the moment, if you've been through surgery where there's a prep and they take you back to this room and you change in the gown and get into bed. And every single doctor comes by and checks on anesthesia, and the check-in nurse, and the surgeon comes by, and the surgeon's assistants, and they sign off things, and you sign off things, and then they start talking about getting you comfortable, and that's clear, that's code for we're getting close. And my personal nightmare was that moment was going to be terror. I didn't have the strength to picture it going strongly and well. I thought it might be abject. Oh my God, don't let them do this to me. And I was freaking out inside. But guess what happened? The most powerful, graceful, strongest thing I ever saw was when my wife And they said, it's time. We're ready to wheel you out. She looked at me. We kissed, and she said, I love you, and I love you. And she turned and looked at them. She said, let's go. Last time I heard my wife's voice. I can still hear it, but I don't get to hear it. So, just a second, we'll get through this. She goes into surgery. It's going to be about 12 hours. They're essentially, I think, lifting her face up to get to this whole jaw area. They're going to go in and get the cancer. They're going to put a stoma in her throat, and for the rest of her life, she's going to breathe through her throat. They're going to separate the esophagus and the larynx, something like that. That's what a stoma. The difference between a trach and a stoma is the separation of those breathing and eating parts. She doesn't breathe through her nose or her mouth. She breathes through a stoma in her throat. There's a hole in her throat right there. There's a G-tube in her stomach for all the nutrition and feeding materials, and had been since earlier in 2017 when chewing got far too painful. So we did the G-tube in like the spring of 17. The surgery came 5 or 6 months later, I suppose, in the fall. And in that surgery, that was the whole plan. Remove the cancer, put the stoma in, close her up and send her out. We're 5 hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours into this surgery, and I'm still sitting in, the lobby of hell. And once again, hang on. Somebody taps me on my shoulder, and it's the cop guy. And I went, oh my God, she's dead. This is it. The surgeon has come out halfway through. She's dead. Well, she's not dead. He saw that in my face really quick. He says, she's all right. She's all right. But we have a problem. Cancer has moved a little further than we thought. And it's just up against that jawbone. So we're gonna take a couple of teeth worth, widthwise, of her jawbone out. And we met. I don't remember all the details. Basically said we're just gonna leave it, and we'll come back later, and we'll put some sort of metal bar in there to hold it in place and all that. And it was something like that. And again, I'm not debating the details of this, and I'm not trying to align or misalign what was exactly it was said, because as you can imagine, I was not in a state of memorizing everything that was coming at me. What ultimately happened is they went from about just left of center, sawed here, and just went almost all the way up to the joint and took all of this. And she didn't know it. It wasn't part of the plan. I had to stop, decide. They said, if you don't want to decide, we will stop everything. We will wake her up. We will tell her. We will let her decide. And then we will go back and proceed. And if we have to come back and do it another day, we will. But we could probably just put her back. I think that's exactly how it went. And she said, let's go. And what she meant was, whatever it takes. So I signed it. I signed for them to take away the piece of jaw. And that's been the battle for a few years. And I don't feel guilty about it. But I hate that I had to sign that. We are just now in 2023 in the process of getting that job back in place. From then to now, She has been through just all of it, the worst of it. It took almost 3 days after surgery before I could even get to the level of her to awareness and cognition to where we could even tell her that had happened. She didn't know for a couple of days that extra measure was done. And she took that news just as hard and as well as you would expect. So since then, after that, we did that surgery, and she's just beat to hell. And her face was truly a pumpkin. I think her eyes were swollen shut for two or 3 days. She couldn't even open her eyes. She was just round. There was a flap taken from her thigh. They took a whole fillet off the left side of her thigh, and well, never mind. That's rebuilding. That's later. Sorry. This is all. Sorry. This is why I get confused. So, cancer surgery number 2 goes like that. We get her home. We have to get her home for a couple of months of just recovery for a month or 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I don't remember, and then back up to Moffitt for another 7 or 8 weeks of chemo and radiation. Same story. Her mom, the hero, comes and they do that back and forth thing. I do the work thing, the father, the household thing, the job thing. And we get her home, and now we're working with a whole different system. She's using a suction machine to clear her stoma because she hasn't developed the ability to, move her own fluids through this new system anymore just yet. She has now, of course, but everything's they replumbed her basically, and it took a while to get it figured out. No cancer since then. I should tell you that we got the 5-year since your last treatment clearance just in the last few months. So I say all this to say she won. Cancer's gone, has been gone, and the status is that we are at a clean bill of health as far as cancer goes. She would even qualify if she needed to for cancer coverage now because it's been 5 years since the last occurrence. So we're good to go with that. We are still, like I said, in the rebuilding process of her jaw. What happened is we basically took a couple years off just to let everything cool down and relax. The folks at Moffitt had a plan for reconstruction. We went and got a second opinion from Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. We heard about this world-famous head and neck oncology surgeon up there, Dr. Boheen. I might be saying it wrong because everybody says it differently. He says Bohini, but I would just call him the Miracle Man. Love this guy and everything about him. Truly, just a good man. He's written a book. If Dr. Kofi Bohene, Boehene, crosses your mind, his story from how he got to where he is to where he is, from where he's from to where he is, it's just amazing. He's a great story. Anyways, we go up there because they have a plan that's different than the folks at Moffitt, and they thought, Dr. Bohene specifically thought, that he could reconstruct her jaw using a bone from her leg, her fibula bone from her leg, and do all of it without making wide cuts, because every time they use a scalpel on her neck, they're cutting blood flow, and then her body has to reestablish blood flow, which is a very big deal. She's lost either one or both of her major arteries, so she kind of has to rebuild blood flow every time they've opened her from ear to ear, and then that's happened 3, 4, 5 times. She's been open neck, had her neck completely open, I guess. He wanted to avoid that. He wanted to make sure that, one, he closed the floor of her mouth so that she could get suction and try to work on becoming a person who could swallow anything, even just sips of water maybe. But having her own swallowing would help that fluid management versus having everything just kind of fall out because gravity takes care of itself that way. And we did that, by the way. We just had a surgery that accomplished that. He wanted to take that fibula flap in her leg and make a jawbone out of it, and I will tell you that has presently been accomplished. They wanted to take a flap out of her thigh to help make the neckline, and they did that in a surgery last year. I'm going out of order, but I'm just giving you the restoration side of it. So we're still in a process of restoration. She has basically two different flaps, one from her upper thigh, which was kind of to help rebuild this area and bring some blood flow. They had to move major arteries around. They moved some blood vessels around so that they could reconstruct that blood flow from all the veins that had been taken away during previous surgeries. They had to get blood flow back up to this new bone they were putting in her jaw. They accomplished all of that. They took the bone was just a few inches long out of her leg, but they took the extent of her leg for some tissue and some blood vessels, ankle to knee, the whole thing. She has an incision all the way. So her whole left leg has been opened up. They took from knee to hip in one surgery for the thigh flap that went up here. And then in this last surgery, they went to her lower leg and took a piece of bone and most of a whole bunch of tissue and some blood vessels to rebuild and get all that built up. And so now there's another flap on there. So she does not at all look symmetrical just yet, but her jawbone is symmetrical for the first time in many years, which is all just it's just miraculous. It's a medical miracle that honestly didn't exist 20 years ago. Anyways, so we are up to that. The reconstruction that's left is to take all this extra tissue. She has a lot of extra tissue there because they just kind of pushed all this stuff up there. And they want it all to attach and to grow and blood flow to develop and all of those things before anybody comes in and starts taking away, right? They work so hard to add to it. They don't want to start shaping and forming and going in and doing cosmetic things too early. So we are in that limbo state at this present time in the first week of May of 2023 is when I'm taping this. And so we're close. We're close to an end line where this poor girl has been through all of it. She will live the rest of her life with no vocal cords. She will probably never chew food. She won't swallow much. She will swallow a little because I know she'll beat it. She's going to start doing swallow therapy and all that stuff here in the near future once everything else gets squared away. You're going to watch her. You'll hear from her, I think. There's a message in her that is bound to come out, and her story is so inspiring, and her spirit is so infectious that you can't help but love her. And I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I married her twice. We'll get to that story too. So that's the cancer story, I think. I hope I didn't miss anything. 7 years in, I live with a wife who has no vocal cords, and we make it work, and we're so damn happy, and I'm so in love with this girl, and I just couldn't be prouder of her for just choosing every day to be here and to fight through this thing on days when there's no chance I would have made it. I promise you I wouldn't have made it through it. She's made it through. There's no chance. What I've seen her accomplish it doesn't humble me, it wrecks me. Humble's too easy. It wrecks me. That's the cancer story. I hope I didn't miss anything. I'm sorry this is 35 minutes long. That's probably shorter than I thought I would go. And I will try not to make super long videos in the future, but sometimes the story just has to be told. I did it. I'm gonna keep doing this. Next story, next chapter. See you.